Hi again, welcome to lecture 2.3, where we're going to talk about the survey, another descriptive method for conducting research in psychology. Hi, so surveys. You've probably all completed a survey at one point or another. But the idea of a survey is if you want to know what people believe or feel or what they do, just ask. That's a survey. It could be a verbal survey, it could be over the phone or in person, it could be a survey online, it could be a piece of paper, but it's a set of questions where you ask someone to tell you about whatever it is you want to study. There's a problem though with surveys, and that is people don't always tell you the truth. If you ask someone how much they weigh, they'll probably tell you 5 or 10 pounds less than they actually weigh. There's all sorts of problems that come up when you study surveys. They're easy to give, but you can't always be super confident in what people tell you. So one problem with surveys is that people don't want to say things that are embarrassing. If you ask people how often they fight with their spouse, they're probably going to give a number that's lower than the truth. Adults commonly underreport their weight, how many arguments they have, their depression, how smart they are, how well they drive, how often they get checkups and physicals. On the slide that you can see now, on the bottom is a box that gives you some data from a study where they were actually able to tell what people were doing. These were students at a major university. So they gave them a survey and asked them how often they did things, how many of them had done things like voted in the last election or what their GPA was. And then they could actually check. And you can see that there's a difference between what people report in the survey and what the reality is. And that's a problem with surveys. We don't want to report embarrassing information. That bias, by the way, to give answers that make us look good, we call that the social desirability bias. We give answers that we think other people want to hear. We give answers that we think make us attractive to other people. Here's another example of social desirability practice. Ask people how smart they are. The reality of the situation is that intelligence follows something called a normal distribution. It's a curve shaped like a bell. Most people are in the middle. The average IQ is always set to be 100. That's the average point in the intelligence measures. And half the people by definition have intelligences lower than average, and the other half have intelligences above average. So you would expect that if we reported intelligence accurately, that half of us would say we're below average of intelligence and half of us would say that we're above average in intelligence. But that's not what happens. In the study that's shown here, only 6% of people, should have been 50, but only 6% of people reported that their intelligence was under average, right? Below average. So this is another example of the social desirability bias, which is a problem for survey methods. Another important issue to remember when people are conducting surveys is who do they give the surveys to? It's very important when you're conducting a survey that you randomly pick people from a population. If you're biased in how you select people, if you only select a certain kind of people, then your answer is that you get from the survey is not going to generalize. It's not going to be true of other people. You want a random sample, a sample picked by chance, not a biased sample. If you get a biased sample, your results, they're not going to be very good. So let me give you some examples. Let's say that you want to conduct an experiment for a class project. And for this experiment, you want to find out how often people in the U.S. text. What do? Well, it turns out you live next door to a nursing home where a lot of people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s and 100s live. So because it's convenient, you go next door to the nursing home to ask people there how often they text. And maybe you find that 10% of the people in the nursing home text, so you conclude that only 10% of people in the United States text. Well, that's wrong, right? And it's wrong, your answer is wrong because you didn't pick a random sample of people. You picked a biased sample. How about another one? Let's say you want to know how many students in the U.S. Enjoy surfing, that they have surfing as a hobby. So you walk around CSUN and you ask people, do they surf? And maybe 20% of them say, yes, I go surfing. So you conclude that 20% of college students surf. Wrong again. We live near an ocean. People surf. People are more likely to be surfers who live by the ocean, right? The percentage of students who go to the University of Iowa or the University of Oklahoma or the University of Kansas who surf is going to be much smaller than the percentage of students at CSUN who go surfing, right? So you need a random sample. Okay. The next technique I want to tell you about is going to be in our next video, 2.4, and that's going to be about correlation and whether you can determine causation from correlation. So be right back.